Emily had always wanted a place of her own. At 26 years old, she finally found a small apartment on the third floor of an aging brick building. The neighborhood was quiet, the rent was affordable, and the large living room window overlooked a peaceful street lined with trees. For the first few weeks, everything seemed normal. Then she noticed the man. It happened late one evening, while she was watching television. As she glanced out the window, she saw a figure standing across the street beneath a flickering street lamp. The man wasn't doing anything unusual. He was simply standing there, motionless, watching. Emily assumed he was waiting for someone, but when she looked again 30 minutes later, he was still there. In the exact same position, she found it strange but tried not to think about it. The following night, the man returned. Same street lamp, same posture, same unsettling stare. Every evening after that, he appeared, always watching the building, always silent. Weeks passed. Emily became increasingly uncomfortable. One night she waved from her window. The man didn't react, not even slightly. It was as if he hadn't blinked. The next morning she mentioned him to a neighbor. The elderly woman frowned. "What man?" Emily pointed toward the street lamp. "The guy who's there every night." The woman looked confused. "I've never seen anyone." Emily laughed nervously. Maybe she simply hadn't noticed him. But the feeling of unease continued growing. Soon, strange things began happening. Her welcome mat would be slightly moved when she returned home. A kitchen cabinet she never used would occasionally be open. Once, she found a muddy footprint near her apartment door. Each incident could be explained away. Yet together, they created a terrifying pattern. Someone seemed to be paying attention. Someone very close. One evening, Emily decided she had enough. She purchased a small security camera and mounted it facing the street. For the next several nights, she reviewed the footage. What she discovered chilled her blood. The stranger wasn't normal. While pedestrians came and went, the man remained frozen. For hours. Sometimes from sunset until nearly dawn. He barely moved, barely shifted, barely even turned his head. The footage looked unnatural, like a statue. A living statue staring directly toward her apartment. Then came the night everything changed. Emily looked outside around midnight. The street lamp was empty. For the first time in months, the stranger was gone. Relief washed over her. Finally, it was over. She locked the windows and went to bed. At approximately 2:17 a.m., she awoke to a sound. A faint metallic click. Her eyes opened. Silence. Then another noise. Somewhere inside the building. A door closing. Slowly, Emily grabbed her phone. Her heart raced. She opened the camera app. The live feed showed the empty street. No stranger. No movement. Then she reviewed footage from earlier that evening. What she saw nearly made her drop the phone. At 1:48 a.m., the camera captured the stranger walking across the street. Not away from the building, toward it. He disappeared through the front entrance. Emily felt cold terror spread through her body. The man wasn't outside anymore. He was inside. Her hands shook as she called emergency services. While waiting, she heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, measured, approaching her door. Each step felt louder than the last. Then silence. A shadow appeared beneath the doorway. Someone was standing outside, listening, waiting. Minutes later, police arrived. They searched the building from top to bottom. What they discovered horrified everyone. Hidden behind a maintenance access panel in the basement was a makeshift living area. Food wrappers, blankets, photographs, dozens of photographs. Many showed residents entering and leaving the building. Several focused entirely on Emily. The stranger had secretly lived inside the property for months, watching, studying, waiting. No one knew what his final intentions were. But one thing was certain. The nightmare had been much closer than anyone realized. Daniel Mercer had spent the entire day driving between business meetings. By the time he started heading home, the sun had already disappeared behind the distant hills. The highway stretched endlessly before him. Dark, empty, silent. The nearest town was over 30 miles away. There were no gas stations, no houses, no signs of civilization. Just miles of lonely road cutting through the wilderness. Daniel turned up the radio and tried to stay alert. Then he saw her. A young woman standing on the shoulder of the highway. Alone. She looked terrified. Her clothes were dirty. Her hair was tangled. One arm was wrapped around herself as if she was freezing. As Daniel drove closer, she stepped forward and raised her hand, asking for help. His first instinct was to keep driving. Every warning he'd ever heard about picking up strangers flashed through his mind. But something about her expression stopped him. She looked genuinely frightened. Desperate. Daniel slowed down. After several seconds of hesitation, he pulled over. The woman rushed toward the passenger door. Before getting inside, she repeatedly glanced behind her, toward the darkness, as if she expected something to emerge from it. The moment she entered the car, she locked the door. Then she sank into her seat, breathing heavily. "Thank you," she whispered. Daniel nodded. "Are you okay?" The woman hesitated. Then she answered, "No." That was all she said. For several miles, they drove in silence. Daniel occasionally glanced toward her. She seemed nervous, constantly looking through the rear window, constantly checking the side mirrors, as if she expected to see someone. Finally, Daniel asked, "Is somebody after you?" The woman looked at him. For a moment, she appeared ready to speak. Then she looked away. "I don't know." The answer made no sense. Daniel frowned. "What do you mean you don't know?" She swallowed hard. "Just keep driving." A knot formed in Daniel's stomach. Something wasn't right. 10 minutes later, he noticed headlights, far behind them. At first, it seemed normal, another vehicle using the highway. But the headlights behaved strangely. They appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Sometimes they seemed distant, other times much closer. The woman noticed them too. Her face instantly turned pale. "Oh no!" Daniel looked at her. "What?" She pointed behind them. "The truck." A cold chill ran through him. "Do you know who's driving it?" The woman nodded slowly. "I think so." Daniel waited. She took a deep breath, then finally began talking. Earlier that evening, she had accepted a ride from a man at a roadside diner. At first he seemed friendly, polite, helpful, but during the drive he became increasingly unsettling. He began asking personal questions. Questions about whether anyone knew where she was, whether anyone would be looking for her, whether she lived alone. The questions made her uncomfortable. Then she noticed something even worse. The doors had been modified. They couldn't be opened from inside. The realization terrified her. When the man stopped at an isolated gas station, she escaped. She ran into nearby woods, eventually reaching the highway. Now she believed he had found her again. Daniel looked into his mirror. The headlights were definitely getting closer, much closer. Then suddenly, the truck accelerated. Its engine roared through the darkness. The distance between the vehicles vanished rapidly. The woman gasped. "That's him!" Daniel's pulse exploded. The truck pulled within yards of his bumper. Its headlights flooded the interior of the car. For several terrifying seconds, the driver remained hidden behind the glare. Then the truck swerved alongside them. Daniel finally saw the man, and the expression on his face. It wasn't anger. It wasn't frustration. It was excitement. The look of someone who believed he had already won. The truck moved closer, attempting to force Daniel off the road. Tires screamed against asphalt. Daniel fought to maintain control. The woman was crying now, begging him not to stop. Not under any circumstances. The truck slammed into them, once, twice. The entire vehicle shook violently. Daniel's hands tightened around the steering wheel. One mistake would send them crashing into the ditch. Then he spotted something ahead. Blue lights. A police checkpoint. Road construction had forced authorities to temporarily monitor traffic. Daniel pressed the accelerator to the floor. The checkpoint grew larger. The truck driver saw it too. For the first time, panic appeared on his face. The truck abruptly slowed, then turned around, attempting to flee. Police immediately noticed the suspicious maneuver. Within seconds, officers were in pursuit. The chase disappeared into the darkness. Daniel finally pulled over. His entire body trembled. The woman sat silently beside him, unable to stop shaking. Hours later, investigators uncovered a horrifying truth. The truck driver was connected to multiple disappearances across several states. Authorities believed he had targeted vulnerable travelers for years. Several victims had never been found. The woman Daniel rescued became one of the few survivors ever linked to the case. As dawn approached, Daniel sat alone outside the police station, thinking about everything that had happened. If he hadn't stopped, the woman might have vanished forever. And if he had stopped later on that highway, he might have vanished too. The empty road had nearly become the scene of another nightmare. When the Harper family booked a countryside vacation home, They hoped for a peaceful escape from city life. For months, work, school, and daily stress had consumed their lives. This trip was supposed to be different. Just 1 week of relaxation, 1 week of quiet, 1 week together. The property looked perfect. The house stood alone at the edge of a dense forest. Surrounded by rolling fields and towering trees, it felt completely isolated from the outside world. The moment they arrived, everyone fell in love with it. The house was spacious, the scenery was beautiful, and most importantly, it felt safe, at least at first. The first night passed without incident. The second night brought the first strange occurrence. Around midnight, Sarah Harper woke up after hearing footsteps. Soft, slow, somewhere inside the house. She nudged her husband. "Did you hear that?" Mark listened carefully. Nothing. Complete silence. They assumed it was the old wooden structure settling. By morning, neither thought much about it, but strange things continued happening. Small things. Easy things to ignore. A kitchen chair would be moved. A cabinet door would be open. A television remote would appear in another room. Each event seemed harmless, yet nobody could explain them. The family blamed each other. Perhaps someone was forgetting where they left things. Perhaps they were simply tired. Then came the fourth night. Sarah walked into the kitchen early in the morning. Every cabinet door was open, every single one. She immediately called for Mark. Together they searched the house. Nothing appeared stolen. Nothing appeared damaged. But the feeling of being watched began growing stronger. That evening, their teenage son Ethan noticed something unusual. There were muddy footprints outside a second-floor window. The discovery made no sense. No ladder existed. No balcony reached that side of the house. Yet the footprints were clearly visible. Mark finally decided enough was enough. The next day, he purchased several security cameras from a nearby town. One camera covered the front entrance. Another watched the hallway. A third monitored the kitchen. That night, they went to bed, hoping the cameras would provide answers. Instead, they created a nightmare. The following morning, the family gathered around a laptop. Mark opened the recordings. For several hours, nothing happened. Then, shortly after 2 a.m., movement appeared. A figure emerged from darkness. Inside the house. The stranger wasn't entering through a door. He wasn't climbing through a window. He was already inside. The person stepped into the hallway. Slowly, quietly, comfortably. As though he belonged there. The family watched in stunned silence. The stranger entered the kitchen, opened the refrigerator, ate food, then disappeared from view. Nobody spoke, nobody moved. The footage continued. Nearly 40 minutes later, the figure reappeared, then vanished again, as if the house itself had swallowed him. Sarah felt sick. Someone had been living inside the property. The question was where. The family immediately contacted local authorities. 2 officers arrived that afternoon. After reviewing the footage, they conducted a thorough search. At first, they found nothing. No signs of forced entry, no signs of occupation, no hidden bedrooms, no hidden basements, nothing. Then Ethan noticed something strange. One of the upstairs closets felt unusually deep. Several measurements revealed a gap behind the wall. The officers removed part of the wooden paneling and discovered a concealed passage. A narrow opening extended into darkness. The smell that emerged was awful. Stale air, rotting food, human habitation. Flashlights illuminated a cramped hidden space running between sections of the walls. Inside were blankets, food containers, water bottles, flashlights, and evidence that someone had been living there for a very long time. The realization horrified everyone. The stranger had been sharing the house with them, watching them, listening to them, learning their routines. For days, possibly weeks, police established surveillance around the property that evening. If the intruder returned, they intended to catch him. Hours passed. Midnight came and went. The house remained silent. Then, at approximately 2:30 a.m., motion sensors activated. A shadow appeared near the hidden passage. The intruder had returned. Officers moved quickly. The suspect attempted to escape through another concealed opening connected to an old storage shed behind the property. But this time, there was nowhere to run. Within minutes, he was captured. Investigators later uncovered a disturbing history. The man had spent years secretly occupying isolated vacation properties. He would move between locations unnoticed, living inside walls, attics, hidden crawl spaces, observing families from secret vantage points. Most victims never realized he had been there. The Harper family, struggled to process what had happened. The vacation ended immediately. They returned home the following day, yet the experience never truly left them. Months later, Sarah admitted she still checked every closet before going to sleep. Mark installed cameras around their house. Ethan refused to stay alone at night, because once you discover a stranger has been secretly living beside you, every creak becomes suspicious, every shadow becomes threatening, and every empty room feels occupied. The family had rented the house expecting a peaceful vacation. Instead, they spent a week sharing it with a nightmare hiding behind the walls. Which of these three disturbing encounters scared you the most? Story 1, Story 2, or Story 3? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more terrifying mysteries and real-life nightmares.